In 2019, American rapper Post Malone released his third studio album, Hollywood's Bleeding. The release dealt with the pitfalls of Hollywood on the social level: fake friends, sleazy deals, drugs, the works. Now, while completely unintentional on Post's part, the term Hollywood's bleeding still has a place in the context of Hollywood today. Hollywood is bleeding. But instead of blood trickling out from extravagant lifestyles, it's gushing from every crevice of Hollywood's working body. The WGA, the Writers Guild of America, is a union which represents multitudes of writers from across Hollywood, such as screenwriters and show writers. Now, this union went on strike in early May following a labor dispute with the AMPTP, which stands for the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers, a bargaining partner that represents hundreds of film and production companies. This dispute stemmed from AMPTP's low offers or direct refusal to increase residuals or compensation, to increase contributions to health and pension funds, and to uphold workplace protection for WGA members. In the 2 months since the WGA strike began, another union was bolstering its defenses for a possible strike in case negotiations between their union representatives and AMPTP fell through. SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild, and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists is a joint union comprising of roughly 160,000 members, ranging from actors, TV personalities, radio hosts, and other professionals in the performance industry. Following a unanimous vote last Thursday by union leaders, SAG-AFTRA voted to join WGA in striking against AMPTP. I seriously didn't realize how many acronyms were in that sentence until I read it out loud. Yeah, that's a lot of acronyms. Similarly to the WGA's demands, SAG-AFTRA's requests included increased compensation and more workplace rights being protected. This exact same walkout happened over 60 years ago for similar reasons involving pensions and compensation. Now, the president of the SHG at that time was, ironically, Ronald Reagan, who, as we know, went on to implement some of the most conservative fiscal policies in U.S.'s history with trickle-down economics. It's honestly kind of interesting considering he was advocating for workers' rights like 20 years ago. So in the wake of these studio strikes and massive shutdowns, responses from studio executives have been cold. One studio executive told a Deadline reporter that the end game is to allow things to drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their homes. In an interview on Friday, Disney CEO Bob Iger claimed that striking actors have a level of expectation that just isn't realistic, and that they're adding on to the set of challenges that the business is already facing. The president of SAG-AFTRA, Fran Drescher, delivered a fiery response to executives both inside and outside of Hollywood later that day during a press conference. During the speech, Drescher lambasted AMPTP executives by labeling them as a greedy entity and just bluntly telling the audience of reporters, shame on them. Not to the reporters, obviously, but to the executives. Throughout the history of entertainment strikes, the problem usually boiled down to the issue of unfair compensation. In the 1960s strikes, for example, a bargaining partner had refused to give SAG, WGA, and AFTRA their share of residuals for films they had worked on that were now being shown on television. In the more recent 2007 through 2008 strikes, WGA members demanded that they receive their fair share of residuals from their content that was now being distributed online by major corporations. This time around, a darker and more pervasive threat lies at the crux of the issue: artificial intelligence, more specifically generative AI. The past 2 years has seen an exponential increase in the use of generative AI, a type of artificial intelligence which is trained to output a series of text, images, or more recently sounds based on a prompt given from a user. Popular examples include DALL-E, which generate images based on the prompt, or ChatGPT, which generates text based on user input. For example, comedian Sarah Silverman recently entered a civil court case with 2 other authors who accused Facebook's parent company, Meta, and ChatGPT's parent company, OpenAI, of copyright infringement on their books. Another literal legal concern arose during a court case after a lawyer used false data which ChatGPT researched in an attempt to defend his client's case. It's no surprise then that given these situations, writers are afraid that studios can use generative technology to cut off their livelihood. Prior to the WGA strike starting, the union claims that when asking and bargaining for protection and regulation against AI, the request was denied, and AMPTP offered them instead annual meetings to discuss changes in technology. The threat of AI doesn't just stop at writers only. In a press conference with SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors portion of all of this, Director Duncan Crabtree Ireland revealed what AMPTP's proposal regarding AI was.
But this groundbreaking AI proposal that they gave us yesterday, in that groundbreaking AI proposal, they proposed that our background performers should be able to be scanned, get paid for 1 day's pay, and their company should own that scan, their image, their likeness, and should be able to use it for the rest of eternity in any project they want with no consent and no compensation. So if you think that's a groundbreaking proposal, I suggest you think again.
What separates these particular Hollywood strikes from all the other ones in Hollywood history is the problem of AI. Never before in the history of cinema have actors and writers faced the threat of being replaced by computers. The AI problem has finally come to a head, and even Dreschner says that there's no way to predict how long the strike will last. One thing is clear. The entertainment industry at large can't escape this looming threat of AI. The music industry seems a susceptible candidate for the next major crisis, given the release of AI tools that have the uncanny ability to match one's vocal patterns. Going back to Post Malone, on Hollywood's Bleeding, he sings, "Everyone's gone, but no one's leaving." Given the state of the picket lines on LA streets, that once eerie line takes on a new hopeful meaning. Everyone is gone from the sets and studios and they're pouring out into the streets. And they won't stop until the executives concede. I'm Julia. I'll see you guys next week.